My name is Edison Thomas, and today we are hosting a special episode of For the Hour. We know that today elapsed the THA, the Tobago House of Assembly, budget presentation, and so we get to discuss my favorite topic, money and the economy. All right, it's all about the economy. All right, and in order for us Tobagonians to advance to the place where we want to be, as the Chief Secretary likes to say, the greatest little island on the planet, the economy is one of the most important factors that we need to pay attention to, because it's going to be one of the primary drivers to get us there. We don't get there without paying attention or full attention to the economy. All right, so we are here tonight on For the Hour to guide the discussion. Right, and we have a jam-packed, extended, special program for you guys tonight. It's going to be a treat. All right, and we encourage all those on Facebook, all right, to engage with us on the live, share the live, so that we can have these discussions among Tobagonians. We ask that you keep the comments respectful on the live. We know that the political banter, it's hot, all right, as I like to say, it's hot. Right, but again, keep it respectful, and we can have civil discourse amongst our Tobago population. Let's show the world we can have civil discourse. All right, so we don't want to waste too much time. We want to get into the meat of the matter, the money. All right, and so we have a jam-packed panel tonight. All right, I could barely move in the studio right now because the table full. All right, so I want to introduce the panel tonight. Firstly, we have Mrs. Kate Trotman, PRO of the Innovative Democratic Alliance. All right, good night, Mrs. Trotman.
Good night.
We also have Dr. Winford James, who is an economist.
No.
And you're not an economist?
No, not at all. Don't introduce me like that. I'm a
Political
political
analyst, all right?
Right. Thank you, sir.
Just reading off of what I had here. Sorry, my apologies, Dr. James. All right, we have Dr. Shane Mohammed, no stranger to the show, who has been with us all day providing commentary towards the budget as well. And we have Mr. Anselm Richards, again, no stranger to the show, technical advisor to the Division of Finance. All right? So, guys, lovely to have you on the panel here this afternoon. All right? We're here to talk about the budget presentation that was here today. We had the Chief Secretary regaling us with the budget. And the speech, his budget presentation was around 3 hours. You know, I always say I do not know how these persons could stand on a platform and speak for that amount of time. It always amazes me, and they always have to be able to deliver the presentation with clarity and boldness, you understand? And they have to keep that up for 3 hours. It's really a remarkable thing. And so I sat and I watched the budget, and there are a number of things that jumped out to me during the presentation and the Q&A after, because even when you finish the Q&A, you think you finish the presentation, you think you finished, but you're not really finished because you have the presentation. All right? So the Q&A, all right? And you have to avail yourself to the media and take the questions, right? And I also think that the administration did a great job on that session as well. All right. But firstly, I just want to get the initial thoughts from the panel of the presentation as it was read. All right. What do you think, or what do you think the presentation was on a whole? All right. As we could move into the nitty-gritties of the discussion. We're going to start with you, Mr. Richards, as I know that you would have had some input into the presentation itself, being a technical advisor to the division.
Well, good night, Tobago. Good night, world. And let me say congratulations to the uploading of Tobago Updates into a full television station, and that's an achievement that we need to celebrate in Tobago. Had I known about it, we should have mentioned it in the budget today, but probably next year. But at the end of the day, the budget conversation today was really a kind of call to order for Tobago and Tobagonians in relationship to the critical things that we need to do in terms of building and laying the foundation to building a sustainable, prosperous, and resilient Tobago. We have to come to the place where we understand that our governance institution are the vehicles that really deliver prosperity, growth, and transformation. And therefore, if we don't invest the time and the effort and the resources to create that strong foundation in our institution, we are going to continue to talk in circles, going nowhere. And Tobago will not advance, we'll leave a very difficult space for the next generation of Tobagonians. So this was really a deliberate call to the people of Tobago to attention, to pay particular attention to these critical issues that are happening in our space, our governance arrangement, the state and quality of our governance institution that we need to really invest in.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Richards, for your input. We're going to move to Dr. Mohammed.
Well, I thought it was, I listened on today. I took it all in, the good, bad, and the indifferent. The package is one that speaks of transformation and speaks of something that it tells of a story, it tells of a passion, it tells of an administration of a level of care that I think Tobagonians need to appreciate. When I look at the different divisions and the projects that are planned for the various divisions, the one that stands out to me the most is the whole idea of climate and energy financing and that whole retro pilot solar farm project at Cove, which got me very excited because I've been very passionate about the continued wastage of that space. And, I have previously served on the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Free Zone Company Limited, and understanding and the foreign direct investment that yields when you make use of these spaces does tremendously for economic growth and development. So, and then, that whole incentive program for hotels to transition into renewable energy. You all are speaking a language that we are in Trinidad very backward. I must say, it leaves a lot to be desired for again, I've always been saying this. I said this from the election to now, that there's a lot that Trinidad can learn from Tobago, and I stand by that. And I look forward to the opportunity for us in Trinidad to really take this step forward and be in this sort of transformational mode that Tobago is in.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. We also have with us Dr. Winford James. All right. Dr. Winford James, share with us your initial impressions on the budget.
I thought it was a bold budget compared to the budgets we have witnessed over time under, for example, Orville London, followed by
Mr. Charles?
Well, Dr. London was at one time the Secretary for Finance. And then he was followed by Joel Jack, right? Kelvin Charles followed as the Chief Secretary.
Yes.
And that's what I meant when I was going to say, starting with Orville London, moving to Kelvin Charles. These guys wanted more and asked for more from the Minister of Finance, knowing full well that they would not get what they asked for. Predictably over time, what happened is that they went with their caps in their hands and they said, give me this amount of money. But they knew that the Minister of Finance would not accommodate their request. Orville London was famous in saying, look, it is not what we wanted, but what we got, I am very satisfied with. He was always easy to please with respect to that. You follow? This budget is bold in that it's asking for more, but it's asking for more than previous budgets asked for. And it wants the Minister of Finance to move from the bottom of the scale that was won by the Ho Choi administration, Ho Choi Charles administration, to move from 4.03 to 6.09.
Yes.
And the projects and the programs have been developed in relation to a percentage of the budget that is larger than we are accustomed seeing. So I think we have to look at how the monies will be spent according to the budget, because the Chief Secretary went through the projects that they had in mind, division by division, and then put it all together and said, well, we need these monies to execute these projects, right? If I am dissatisfied by one thing in the budget, and Anselm would correct me in due course, is that enough money was not applied to investment.
Okay.
Investment is underfunded in this budget, and Tobago badly needs the investment. Of course, there are programs to get agriculture going in a particular direction, to get infrastructure going in a particular direction. But investment-wise, the sum that is asked for, or the sum that we are told would be applied to investment, is too small.
Right.
I think Tobago needs all the investment it can have. And it's not that I'm unaware of hotel projects that we see are coming. And Rocky Point, for example. And some Marriott is going to be where? I think the Chief Secretary said Stockley.
Rockley.
It should be Rocky Point.
Rocky Point.
Also,
Point.
that he probably misspoke because he used the wrong place. Right. So it's not that I'm unmindful of the fact that there's going to be some kind of productivity there, some attempt to increase the room stock for hotels and so on. I'm aware of these things. I'm just saying these things take a little time, don't they, Sister Kay? Right? So I'm saying there is a boldness there, and we can spend some time asking whether the Minister of Finance will give the Chief Secretary and his team the 6.09 that has been long in the books,
Yes.
in the law,
Yes.
but has not been activated, has not been used. One wonders whether the Minister of Finance will do that this time. And I imagine some noise will be made as we hear the other secretaries give their contribution and compliment what the Chief Secretary has said. But there's a lot to talk about.
Yes. There is. Ms. Trotman, we're going to go to you. What are your initial thoughts on what you heard? The 3-hour presentation.
I think the budget signaled the need for transforming the Tobago economy. And more so, the work that will be necessary to transform the Tobago economy. So I do not want us just to see the budget as whether it was a good budget or it was limited. There is significant work that both the administration and the people of Tobago would need to become engaged in if we have to transform the economy. And if this budget signals that, it means that, hey, the time, regardless of what is happening in our space, the time is very critical for us to be able to focus on transforming the Tobago economy, even with everything that is happening. The fact that it signals also the need to take a very, very close look and critical look at the governing structures that we would need is also very critical for the success of even this budget, even though it's for a year. And it is critical because it is going to be a signaling as to whether or not going forward beyond the year, we're going to have the momentum to continue focusing on transforming the economy.
Right. And we have joining us virtually tonight Mr. Mariano Brown, who is the former Minister and Minister of Finance, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for joining us. Are you hearing us, Mr. Brown?
I'm hearing you clearly. I hope you're hearing me.
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear. Thanks for joining us. We are getting the initial thoughts from the panel on the budget presentation that was read today. You care to weigh in?
Well, I think everybody's kind of summarized it in different ways. So let me give you a little bit of my perspective. To me, the key thing in the budget is the size of the Tobago economy. And we have a situation where the research unit is estimating it as just under $2 billion. But we're talking about an expenditure profile where we're requesting a budget of roughly $4 billion, which is literally twice the size of the Tobago economy, 2.5 times actually. So I think everything has to be looked at in the form of context. That's the first point. And the second point, we're talking about transformation. Well, I think that's probably a good word, but we're not transforming from, we have to transform into something. I think it's a critical issue. And the bottom line, and it's summed up in, I think, the early part of the budget speech, is how expenditure, how the expenditure is calculated or is spent. Right? And literally, the majority of it goes on recurrent expenditure. So even if the size of the investment expenditure, I think last year what the budgeted number was 900, and what was put into position was less than 4. The reality is that we're spending 5 times the amount of the development budget in terms of recurrent expenditure. So what we, in terms of transformation, what we really have to talk about is moving away from the size of the recurrent budget to increasing the size of the development budget. And I'm not certain if we're talking simply from the perspective in terms of getting a higher allocation in terms of the budget. The reality is, where should investment come from? Should it be from the Tobago House of Assembly? And the second question that follows from that is, how do we dynamize private sector investment, which is ongoing, which will move in that particular direction? And unfortunately, I think the focus is on what the THA will do. And I think that's an inadequate and an incorrect focus. So my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you for your input there, Mr. Brown. And so we have to take a short break, and we're going to continue our discussion on the budget, the 2023-2024 budget presentation, THA budget. When we return, we're going for a short break. We'll be right back.
Cafe, the buffet restaurant that specializes in all your tasty local dishes. For breakfast and for lunch. Breakfast includes coconut bake and sada roti, served with chokers, buljoil, and sausages in tomato sauce. Not forgetting beef and cheese pies, shepherd's pie, macaroni pie, and rice in various styles. Meat served in a variety of flavors, garden salads, and pasta salads. All this accompanied by fruit juices, coconut water, your choice of a great combination to appease your taste buds. So call us today to order, as we are here to accommodate your busy schedules, or if you are having a cooking day off.
From the experts that created the Zinger sandwich comes the KFC Crispy Barbecue Zinger.
The only one I see is you.
Cheddar cheese, crispy onions, the most delicious Kentucky Fried Chicken, and barbecue sauce. Get ready for a whole new level of flavor.
Full disclosure with the executive every Thursday at 8 p.m. only on Tobago Updates. Real questions and honest conversations with the sole aim of keeping you fully in the know. Full disclosure with the executive every Thursday at 8 p.m. only on Tobago Updates.
It's a different type of thing down there. And we party till we drop down there. With a lot of pretty girls down there.
And we're back with a special edition of 40 Hour, where we discuss the budget presentation that was laid out today in the Tobago House of Assembly by our Chief Secretary, Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine. And we continue our discussion with our panel tonight. And where we left off, we were getting the initial impressions of from each panelist about what they thought about the budget, all right? And so I want to make some stats clear here, right? We estimated in the budget today that it was read that we will be asking the central government for $4.54 billion, which is approximately 6.9% of the estimated budget that is supposed that they anticipate to come in October, all right, which they anticipate will be over $65 billion, right? So just to make it bring it down to dollars and cents, we are asking for $6.9 or $6.90 of every $100 that is spent in Trinidad. Also, it is noted to be said that 6.9% is on the upper part allowed by law established by the Dispute Resolution Committee, as the Chief Secretary said over 20 years ago. All right? So, just wanted to put it across to the panel, right? We have an ask of $4.54 billion, even though the chief had said in years past it's less than what we have asked for in the past, but more than what we are accustomed getting. All right. So seeing as though we are accustomed getting to the lower echelons, right, and we are asking on the upper echelons, is there anything sticking out in this budget that you think will move the Minister of Finance to give us on the higher echelons of this budget? Anybody in the panel could answer. I know Mr. Richards here itching to answer.
Well, the only thing in this space that will get the Minister of Finance to move is the Prime Minister at the end of the day, and I hope that he will come home to us on this budget. But be it as it may, the budget was calibrated against a projected budget for the national economy of Trinidad and Tobago in the region of 65.78 billion. And we apply the DRC ruling, and we are saying that we are demanding a revenue share of 6.9%, which works out to the $4.45 billion that we are asking for. And we predicated our recurrent and development operation body of work across that body of 4.54 billion, and gives us 3.33 about there for recurrent and 1.151 billion for recurrent for development. Now, there are a few things that we need to bring, and I just wanted to jump off from when Mariano would have brought the classical economic conversation about the size of the GDP and so forth. But we have to understand the historical context of the Tobago economy and the way that we have been treated over the years, and the deficit of investment over the years, and left us with, economic infrastructure that needs to be modernized. We need to expand the opportunities for the private sector to invest. We need to build the infrastructure, the ports, the airports. We are now getting, in 100 years, probably a modern terminal that will allow 747 to fly into Tobago without hitting into a coconut tree. So we have to understand that at this stage of the game, the island government of Tobago, the THA, will have to make some significant investment in terms of our infrastructure to create that inviting and enabling environment for private sector to really come in and invest in this space. We also want to create the space that will attract our own people, our diaspora, and other persons to come and bring knowledge capital, the migration of qualified and skilled people into the space. So it's a mix of activities, and we can't leave this to chance, to the forces, to the market forces, which is really what Mariano is speaking about. So the initial stage, that's where we are. the government will have to make the investment and be the leader, the lead to create that kind of
So
of
what I'm
investment
hearing,
opportunity.
or what I'm seeing is that with the allocations that we have gotten in the past, Tobago has more or less been on life support.
Of course, sugar
But-
water.
Yes, but in order for us to put the jump start on boosting the economy, we have to make some investment, which is the reason why we call for
Yeah.
this
So
amount.
there is this phenomenon. You see that what we are doing in Tobago in some of the programs and projects we are doing, we are trying to crowd in private sector investment by creating those investment opportunities by the spending and building the infrastructure, improving our human resource capability, improving governance, our ability. Because at the end of the day, the government has to facilitate the private sector business development,
Right.
for license
Yes.
and all that, custom clearing and all of that. For the private sector to prosper, you have to
Yes.
have an efficient government. So we have to lay the foundation, do the investment,
Right.
and that costs money.
It costs, yes. Dr. Mohammed, do you have anything to add on that? The 4.54 billion, recurrent 3.4. What do you think about those figures?
I can't take off, as Dr. James would know, I can't take off my political scientist hat. And I will bring in the realpolitik into this
Well,
thing.
or should I introduce you as the political scientist?
Because
Start too,
the
because you only
Machiavellian philosophy that I so heavily subscribe to has me very concerned about this is not impossible. This what Anselm just explained, the vision, the thrust towards transformation, the move towards creating, and I've also said that in the past that there's the need for Tobago to create its own generate its own economic revenues.
Yes, it
And that Tobago has, and I've said this in budgets before, that the time has come for Tobago to be able to stand on its own. And to be able to give Tobago the opportunity to stand on its own, it needs the right set of minds, which I think it has right now. But unfortunately, there's another step that they have to pass in order to reach that goal. And I'm very concerned, and I will speak very bluntly about it. I'm concerned about the relationship between the central government
And Tobago.
and the THA. And the thing about it is the fact that politics and petty politics gets in the way of our people's development. And this is not the development of Tobago as a runaway horse. This is not the development of Tobago that wants to stand on its own in terms of, obviously there are conversations about autonomy, and they're rightfully so. And I believe that Tobago is also entitled to that. It's an entitlement that they deserve. However, given the I have to find the right political given the animal that the THA is facing in Trinidad, and some of the utterances that I've heard just even over the past week about I don't have time, I will not waste my time, and I will not listen, I will not hear, I cannot trust, and all of that. And then I heard, I wrote it down somewhere, at the end of the Chief Secretary's speech, he made a very important comment about, coming together and the need for us to come together as one Tobago in order to achieve the ultimate goal that they would have wanted. And if you have it, lend me it, please. Because that is a very important
script,
He may have, but if it's there, he said, there's something about us wanting to come together as one people and coming together to understand and moving away from the bipartisanship and that sort of thing. And, he said, Right. He said, we will not allow narrow partisan political interests and selfish personal agendas to trump the interests of Tobago. But there was something else when I think he may have gone off script when he said, I want us to come together as a one Tobago people. Yes. What is required is for coalesce around the values and principles and qualities that truly define and distinguish us as Tobagonians. And I would add to that, not just Tobagonians, but as Trinbagonians.
Yes.
As Trinbagonians. And, we need to face this white elephant and deal with it head on in order to, for what I will say is archaic thinking and archaic political thinking to be removed out of the political space. Because, and again, coming from the whole, my ideal of Trinidad must take the lead from Tobago, and it's time we go the route of new. And vision of seeing a new Trinidad and Tobago, a united Trinidad and Tobago, a Tobago and a Trinidad that stands on equal ground, has to happen. It has to happen whether it happens in 2024 in the budget or whether we make it happen in 2025 in a different way and in a way where we all come together as one people with the same vision for ourselves and our generations. I think, this is not about the administration, the THA administration versus the central government. It is about the development of the people. And who is to benefit are the generations that exist now and the generations that are to come. And for how long are we going to continue just giving Tobago pittance and saying this is enough and your economy is going to, you have to thrive on this. I mean, I would not lie. I've been advocating for the Secretary for Tourism to even go out there and bring. As I was talking today on the program with
Max.
Mr. Max, with Max, and I said last week I saw something that I was quite jealous. I have to say I was jealous. I saw an Embraer aircraft. It holds 50 people. And the Embraer aircraft flew from New York and landed in the British Virgin Islands in Tortola with 50 people from New York, an American Airlines flight. And I said to myself, why can't, if we start with 50 people coming to Tobago on that very same Embraer to Tobago, it's a start. Why can't we start there? But to start there, we have to get rid of the partisanship and the pettiness, and I don't have time, and the constant conversation that we've been hearing over and over. For how long have we been in an independent country? How many political parties have existed? How many political parties have spoken about strategies, about getting mechanisms in place to push their narrative? The political, and I make no qualms about saying political communication is very important.
All right.
And it is part of the structure of political communication. And we cannot continue talking about something that did not happen.
Right.
But let us look at something that could happen.
Right.
And let us focus on this, which will transform us. And I say us because I consider myself part of the whole, right? That will transform us into the greatest little island that is envisioned by the administration.
Nice.
And I make no apologies for saying that.
If I can jump off.
Yes, just go ahead.
If I can jump off where Dr. Shane talked about what would make central government give us 6.9, central government has to change its view of Tobago.
Yes.
Tobago is not a dependency. It is not a ward. Tobago needs to be seen as an equal partner that can contribute to the national development of Trinidad and Tobago.
That has been contributing.
And that but you have to recalibrate and recalculate what Tobago's contribution has been. I believe Tobago's contribution has always been undervalued or underreported.
Yes.
Chief Secretary today.
And we're going to get into that, Mr. Richards. We're going to get into that.
He made it very clear.
So that is
Are we having a free for all now?
Yes. So the 6.9 ask
I
should
can
be
join the free
towards-
for all. I'm a far more disciplined man than that.
Yes.
So I will wait until you call upon me.
And you could go ahead, Dr. James.
I want to listen to other people's ideas. I'm just saying. Tell
can
us,
go ahead, Dr.
tell
James.
us what your approach is going to be. Let me
Yes.
continue by saying that 6.9% of the budget is not something that I accept. Why can't we have 10? Why can't we have 15? We can't have those because we don't have the political authority to have it. It's all determined in the parliament of the country as that parliament is ruled by the cabinet. They are the ones who decide. We go and we ask to get, we have been doing this for years.
Yes. Yes.
Tobago is politically strangled
Yes.
as an island.
Yes.
And what has happened over the years, I was talking to one of those taxi drivers this morning in Trinidad, is that the kind of politics that has been propagated in this country has resulted in Tobago losing good talent, very good talent, weak talent, but it has drained the island of talent. And the
Including you?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Although I've had one foot,
man.
I've had one foot in one place and another foot in another place. But we have been made mendicants in that sense, in that it's struggling and we drain us. And so you find that a lot of the villages, go around to the villages, go back a generation or two, you can't find them. Now tell me, if you have a politics that sends your people away from their land of birth,
Yeah.
how is the land going to be developed?
How is it going to prosper?
How is it going to prosper? So I'm saying what we have is a federal budget, and the political bosses of the country have determined that Trinidad will have 97%. They have determined that for a long time. It used to be less.
Yes.
It used to be more than 97%, where they are 93%, sorry. It used to be less. And you know what we need? We need people who can constantly articulate the ways in which the problems will be solved. It's not simply saying we should have it, but we should show how we should have it.
Yes.
We
and
should
why.
develop the argumentation, and we should have people who are articulators, Anselm, people who will stand up every so often, predictably and religiously, and say, look, we want equality of status, and I will show you what I mean by that and how we can have it. I can give you the structures
Yes.
that would support the idea that we should have equality of status. What do we mean by self-determination? I can launch an argumentation
Yes.
that shows how that can be done.
Yes.
But when people make a fuss about whether you can spend 6.09, that is ridiculous. I could spend, however,
You could spend way more than that.
plenty more than that. So don't come and tell me that we're only fighting for. We give you 4.3 last year, and we're going to give you 4.6 this time. You get more.
You get more.
Keep quiet. They determine my life. And for me to survive with the quality that I want, I have to go and beg those guys for money. And this is after I know that in Tobago waters is wealth that can make us richer than some of the biggest countries of the world.
Even Richard
Kuwait,
mentioned that.
Qatar, these are wealthy countries. Tobago can be like that.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for your input there. And not to forget Mr. Brown on joining us virtually. What do you add to? We asked for 4.54, all right, which is on the upper echelon, 6.9. Is there anything that will move the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister to give us that, in your view?
Nothing. I haven't heard any arguments that were suggested. And quite frankly, Tobago's House of Assembly spends all that money on development. I'm not certain what that development means. First of all, Tobago House of Assembly as an investor, if you want to put it that way, as a development investor, doesn't have a particularly good record where that is concerned. That's the first point. Secondly, with all due respect to the abilities of the THA, I don't think they have the wherewithal to invest the extra money in any sort of income generating project that will work on its own. And that's the reality too. That's one of the reasons Ansel may call it traditional economics. But the reality is you have to have a business engagement, and you have to be based upon some business fundamentals. It has to make sense, right? So the fundamental issue, I mean, I'll take the airport as a good case. All right, I'll take the airport as a good case. We build the airport first, and we're likely to find that we have airport capacity, but we have no bed capacity. 2 747s a day, and we probably would have filled the hotels for the week. So you have an airport that literally will be down for the rest of the time. So there's a sequencing in terms of this investment, and it's a lumpy positioning. What comes first? How do we build it out in sequence? How many hotel beds do we put in position? And the reality is you need about 5,000 or 6,000 hotel beds, which is approximately 4 times the amount that you have now, right? And quite frankly, the THA shouldn't be building them because they're not going to run them well. That's a reality, whether you want to accept it or not, but that's it. So to tell me that you'll get X amount of $1 billion and you're going to make investment expenditure, you can't run the hotels. You're not going to be able to run them well. So on that basis, we're talking about a sequencing of activities over time, but we're thinking about whether we'll be able to lump all of this expenditure in any one particular year, and it will work. It won't. So I think we have to face some reality where that is concerned. The second part about that is what is the likely revenue envelope that we're looking at over the medium term, 4 to 5 years. Let's deal with that. And we're talking about, we have some projections about what we consider to be income to come in. The reality is that the energy sector, which drives our foreign exchange earnings and generates about 80% of foreign exchange earnings, is in distress. We have to face that too. So whatever budget you expect, and the IMF report says it very clearly, Trinidad and Tobago is going to be in a deficit position in this budget, in the next budget, and in the following budget to go with that, because the likely revenue is not going to be in position. So that the Minister of Finance has a problem in terms of allocating extra expenditure. So I don't think it's realistic to expect that the upper band, by the way, is not mandatory. The upper band in terms of what is provided in terms of the Dispute Resolution Commission, that's not likely to be seen. In addition to which, right, the revenue envelope for the unitary state is going to be squeezed. So if Tobago has to get $4 billion more, what are you going to cut the $4 billion from, generally speaking, to make it work? And as much as Tobago has claims, CJOS has claims, Miaro has claims, and I've had this argument with Dr. James in the press several times with regard to the definition of Tobago waters. I don't particularly want to go it over again here. But the reality is that the energy envelope and the revenue envelope that we're looking at for the foreseeable future is not going to go up. It's going to go down. And that's the last 22, 20, 21, and 22 were aberrations. Trinidad and Tobago is producing 2.8 billion cubic feet as we speak. Right? And we don't have the kind of exploration that is likely to generate anymore. And we're producing approximately 60,000 barrels of oil, which is approximately 1/4 of 25% of what we used to produce at the height of our production. Right? And we are, in the case of natural gas, we're 40% below. There's no real evidence on the horizon, and that's what part of the whole idea of Dragon gas and Manatee and everything else that we want to talk about. We talk about gas in Venezuela waters, not understanding that the Venezuelans have an interest in developing their own gas. That's one of the reasons why we don't have it. It's not because they haven't talked. It's not because we haven't been doing X, Y, and Z. We've been talking about it for 20-something odd years, right? But it hasn't happened. There's a reason why it isn't happening. And the reason is that it's not because of any problem with the U.S. The Venezuelans are loath or very slow to give it to us, right? Because they see that as part of their development future. We have to understand that. So my point is that realistically, and we have to talk about realism here, right? Realpolitik, if you want, right? The reality is that development has to take place in phases over a period of time. Right? Tobago has a population of approximately 60,000 people, right? Which is not a maintainable size. for any significant amount of development. So what we have to ask ourselves the question is, how much per job development or job generation do we need to spend, and over what particular time? We're already talking about 1% unemployment. So if you grow the economy and you have extra development, well, what's likely to take place? We have the manpower to basically run it. What you have to talk about is immigration. That's another that's another thing altogether. None of those kind of things are on the agenda. So I think we need to add some realism to this conversation here, which it is missing. And we have to talk in terms of the development for the future. And those are my 2 cents in relation to what has been said too far.
Mr. Brown. We're going to have to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to allow the panel to pose questions to each other. And I know that everybody here is waiting and gearing to go. All right, but we have to take a break. We have to pay some bills, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. All right, we'll be right back.
Best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorns Place, with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorns Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Right now, Tobagonians are just scurrying down to Bonaccord, right in Stobie Local Road. You know why? To come down and shop at Authentic Builders General Hardware, the only hardware store in Tobago that is giving you guys Trinidad prices. So for instance, such as steel, 1/2 inch and 5/8, $7,895. 5/8 construction ply for $260. Every single thing that you will need to do your home renovation or start your new construction, we have it right here. And to get your quotation, it's very easy. Just WhatsApp us at 272-1990 and we will do your free WhatsApp quotation for you.
Are you looking for a place for your loved ones? Heavenly Care welcomes you. Located at Northside Road opposite Massey Motors, we offer a variety of services. These include doctor visitations, social activities, geriatric care, and much more. Contact us at 277-9595 or visit us at Northside Road opposite Massey Motors. At Heavenly Care, compassion is at the heart of all care.
And we're back. All right, we are back with the special presentation of For the Hour. And tonight we are discussing the THA budget that was laid in the House today by our Chief Secretary, Mr. Fali Chavez Augustine. When we left off, we had our comments coming from Mr. Brown, who is joining us virtually. And we continue the discussion with Dr. Shane, who wanted to add some comments to what Dr. Mr. Brown said.
I don't disagree totally with what Mr. Brown is saying, but there's one thing that I am a little bit concerned about. It's political will, and it is a lack of political will. And there are countries that are prospering with less than 60,000 people in the population. There are countries in the region that are prospering, independent countries that are prospering, and there's a thrust towards economic growth in tourism, in renewable energy, in whether they invest in climate change. I mean, if you want to even, you could look at You could go from St. Kitts, come down, you could talk about Mia Motley, you could talk about Curacao, you could talk about Aruba. Oh, they're all very small islands.
Yes.
And not because we are only 60,000 people on the island, it means therefore that, and he made a good point about talking about the realpolitik about this whole thing. And then, so then let's talk about it from a bigger picture. And, you know, a lot of what he has said, he's thrown into, I'm happy he did, he threw into the court of central government, which says to me, who's listening on, that central government has not done its job. Central government has not done the investment and done the trust towards foreign direct investment as it should. The central government has not been adequately and sufficiently and efficiently and effectively working towards the regeneration of and the rebuilding of the refinery. We are producing 60,000 barrels of oil not because we can't do better, it's because the powers that be are not doing what they're supposed to do. We are not moving away from the dependency of oil and gas when we have so much when we have so much resources available to us. We are wanting, the central government is having a conversation about introducing solar panel energy for households, but also talking about taxing persons, right? So the word taxation has become part of the way to make money, and they're not thinking about innovative and transformational ways. I mean, Mr. Brown is I have great respect for him because, I mean, he thinks futuristically as well. But at the same time, we can't deny that the central government has literally collapsed on itself when it comes to the ease of doing business to Trinidad and Tobago. People are running away from doing business with Trinidad and Tobago because our bureaucratic processes are exhausting. And I can tell you because I have spoken to people who have wanted to come to Trinidad and Tobago and invest, but it takes too long to get simple documents that previously took 2 days, that now takes 2 weeks. Our bureaucracy is in a mess. Our processes and procedures are frustrating people. And if we are not correcting those things because there's a lack of political will and it is easy and it is my way or the highway, then what about the development of our people? What about the creating opportunity for our people? What about ensuring that we have specialization of persons staying within the boundaries of Trinidad and Tobago and contributing to the economic development of Trinidad and Tobago and the diversification of various sectors of our economy that has the potential for growth and development? And if we continue the conversation about just sticking to the realpolitik of the economics, and not trying to push the boundary and thinking way beyond that that we know we can think, because we are not a dunce group of people. We pride ourselves in being intelligent and brilliant, and we're not lacking in innovation and creativity. In every sector there exists. However, there has to be some level of investment in the people. And after so many years of the THA existing and the Tobago space having a dependency syndrome on what the powers that be say or don't say, or like or don't like in Trinidad, we have to get away from that. Give them an opportunity to prove us, and I will say us, the greater population, give them the opportunity to prove us right or wrong.
Yes.
No, it's not giving you the opportunity to
give them the opportunity to prove that.
I don't care what other people say about me. I want to run my own affairs. I want to practice democracy.
Agreed.
The island has never had that chance. We will make mistakes.
Of course.
As all governments. But don't tell me that, okay, it's a real politic thing, and therefore we've got to pay attention to the realities of the situation. I will make my own realities. I will respond to realities that others make. But I want to have the determining say in what happens to me.
Agreed.
The population hasn't had that chance.
And Dr. James, and that's a fundamental pillar in the budget today.
Yes.
Fundamental. And if we don't fix this governance arrangement, and Mariano is very aware of that, it is the institutions of the states that powers development. is the institution. And this was deliberate. The conversation was deliberate that we need to invest in fixing these institutions. And key to that is our governance arrangement, the constitution and legislation that sets up the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. The conversation was clear. And we prepare to do it in phases. We have to fix these institutional issues that will drive efficiency and effectiveness and delivery to the people. But we can't stop doing the work in terms of developing our infrastructure.
Right.
But our core focus for this fiscal is to deal with these institutional arrangements. There is where we want to make the investment. Our forecast in terms of our revenue, whether Port of Spain want to give us, whether the envelope of the revenue becomes smaller, we still want with 6.9%.
Yes.
Right? If it's $5, give it with 6.9%.
Yes.
Right? So, because that is what Port of Spain seems to be determining for Tobago all the time. But this has to change. The other thing is that he spoke about the 1% unemployment figure. Well, we have flagged that. That is what is they say that in Trinidad? Is they say that? Is them say that in Trinidad? That the unemployment figure in Tobago is 1%. Right?
That came from the CSO?
Yeah, from the CSO. Yeah. So we don't know, but we flag that because we know better on the ground, right? Yeah. So we don't know what methodology they are using to calculate the unemployment figure. But it could be really 1%, because as Dr. James said, most of our people going to Trinidad, they're leaving because they're starving us here. They ain't giving us nothing to keep our own people here. We lose Dr. James. We lose even the Prime Minister.
That might have been a good
thing. So we have to fix these things because these issues have real impact on Tobago's ability to develop. When you are losing your best mind, as a matter of fact, there is an estimate of over 300 first and second generation Tobagonians living in Trinidad.
30,000.
100.
That's under concrete.
300,000. Yes, or more. Right?
So there are more Tobagonians living outside of the island than
here. Because of the state of underdevelopment of the island. It has been kept that way. When you have to leave Tobago to go to train to become a teacher. You go down there, you meet Dr. Shane Mohammed, you're married, you come back. You
want to come back. I myself had to force and come
Watch me. I went down there, I joined the police service, go university. If I didn't have a love for Scarborough, I'd down there. I'd come back. But because I had my people in Belgrade, so I don't come back. And I decided me and married nobody who is not a
Tobagonian. Okay.
But the fact of the matter is that those things have real implications for us. I think this administration is deliberate, bold, and focused on what it wants to do to move Tobago forward. Right. I understand the challenges that Mariano speaks of, but we have to start somewhere. And we have to take the bold step. We have to be courageous as a people. We can't step back and be cowed by what Port of Spain have been doing to this island for the last 100+ years.
Right.
Tobagonians have to step forward and claim their space. This is our island. We live here, we work here, we play here, and all our we are dead here.
But let me throw something in the mix, for you gentlemen. Apart from what you guys are talking about in terms of the whole governance structure, there also needs to be a mind shift for us as Tobagonians. Some of the things that the government needs to do in terms of stimulating economic activity in themselves must be done to make business.
Of course.
So that some of the jazz festivals, the general festivals approach that we are saying we're doing it and it's not really to make a profit, we need to change that.
Yes.
It is not necessarily going to happen overnight, but we need to give ourselves a time frame that we are going to move from this particular position where we are just doing it, hoping to give an employment and stimulate employment, into actually charting an economically viable path towards some of these things, whether it's going to take 20 years to move from it's just public sector investing into these, into public-private partnership, into eventual private ownership. We need to put those demands on ourselves as well. Otherwise, while we're trying to fight on one hand to get the governance structure and everything and the other institutions to work, we're undercutting ourselves because at the economic end, we're not also doing the necessary
I hear the Chief Secretary saying in his speech today that he's aware that there's a need to change the monetary approach.
Yes.
And in fact, he hasn't specified, but he says there are lessons that the executive council has learned. And one of those lessons is to make those things profitable.
Have to.
But we haven't seen any plan that lays it out.
And that becomes part of the challenge.
well, we
that
need
all
that
to
all the
work
time.
towards.
Guys, I want to.
Let me just come in here.
Okay. I'll let you go and then I'll direct.
And I guess probably Mariano will come after. So you have these festivals, right? There is an issue of an economic return and a financial return. So as a government, you are using these festivals to spur economic activity for private enterprises, right? So you are not looking for a profit.
No,
Just now. But you are generating economic spend by people coming, participating, staying by your hotel, eating your food, going around the island and so forth. When you do that, the economic impact of that spend will create more economic activity than the value of what you are putting out.
Well,
So
Anselm,
you return.
Anselm,
Hold on. Let me
it
finish.
must just a bit. I'm helping the point.
Yes.
You are the people who talk like that are misreporting. Because if you are saying what I hear you to be saying, that small businessmen or big businessmen are making money as a result of jazz,
Of course.
or as a result of the Tobago Carnival,
Of course.
then you have to include that in the benefits that have happened
but
as
that
a result of staging the event.
Yes.
But if you recall, I appeared before the Joint Select Committee, and this question was asked.
Yes.
And when I explained it, it changed the whole national conversation on this issue. They called Gypsy, they called the Minister, Mitchell.
Yes.
I asked them, when they started talking about Tobago Carnival, run at a loss.
Yes.
I said they spent $140 million on the
When
national
has
carnival.
Trinidad and
What was the
Trinidad
return on
Carnival
it?
has been
Of course, they
a
have
profit.
weak
They
memories,
don't make
right?
profits down there either. Right?
No, but that's
So-
what the
so
point.
we-
Remember, I
we
was
see-
making the
Yeah.
point
It's not
about
monetary profit.
articulating.
So,
Yes.
but the position, the policy position of the administration on these festivals going forward is that while we are not looking for an a financial return, we are looking to ensure that these festivals are executed in the keeping with the principle of value for money.
Value for money.
But you've got to have people doing the
so-
analysis,
of course.
and telling us yes.
So-
that has to be part of it.
Yes, but I want to direct the conversation into a different direction, and we started to touch on it earlier. All right.
Don't forget you have Mariano with us.
Yes,
So
yes,
you're
yes.
not,
And
you're not saying
we're gonna get. We're
don't
gonna
leave him out there in
No,
cyberspace.
no.
you
We're
know.
gonna leave him.
I like to
right?
see him pop up on the on the screen.
And I'll probably pose this one to him first.
Yes.
Right? Right. So a few years ago, not really paying attention to the politics, but I was now getting into it. Just as how you have bought the budget presentation for me, I took the time to go through after hearing the Prime Minister saying our contribution to the national revenue, right, was just over 200 a year. So I took myself and I went into the documents and I looked and I really analyzed the thing, and I say, when you really look at this, is this really what Tobago really generating? Because you're not seeing the income coming in from the businesses. The majority of it comes from the employees that pay taxes, all right, and possibly VAT. But you're not seeing the contributions coming from all the businesses that are represented here in Tobago. And I was like, why is that? Why is that? Only to when I do deeper discussion and the deeper research, when the Chief Sec alluded to today, is that we have companies here that operating on a national space that pay all their taxes into the inland revenue in Trinidad, right? As opposed to by law, and I looked, I was like, what is do we have a mechanism where this can be collected into Tobago? And I looked, and it's there, right? In the Act of 96, it's there, right? So what are we willing to do? Because we possibly could be looking at a 500 million, and that could change the needle drastically.
Well, it's a science, right?
Yes, it is.
Which means that it deals with data.
Yes, it is.
Which means that you can analyze the data and come to certain conclusions.
Yes.
We need that. Where is it? In relation to Tobago, where is that?
Where is that data?
There was something called PRDI.
PRDI, yes.
A research body that was developed during the time of Hotel Charles, and that, of course, was thrown into the dungeon by Orville London, PNM Chief Secretary.
Right.
We have to organize. We have to have a chance to show ourselves that we can do things very successfully as Tobagonians. But we can't do them except we take the opportunity to be our own bosses. And that is where the governance issue becomes the most important issue on the budget. What do we do as people to get our will expressed in our way of life? What do we do? What can we do? Now, if we don't get to that point and we make the arguments and we say, look, Trinidad, we go to the parliament and we say, look, this is what we want. Yes? And these are the reasons why we want them. And let them push back.
Right.
Not arbitrarily, because we are going to all see. Let them push back logically. Let them push back with the facts that can argue otherwise.
Right.
With the data that must drive the
we have to let Mr. Brown come in. Mr.
But
Brown.
remember you said he can jump in.
Yes. Mr. Brown. I see Mr. Brown watching here, like if we speaking dreams. Mr. Brown, what do you think? What about our contributions being underreported? Do you think they're more accurate, or do you think that more work needs to be done to show the country our real contribution?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes. We have to do more work on it. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a fair comment. In the same way that I think more work has to be done in terms of reporting regionally across Trinidad and Tobago. What we do is we have a central office and we basically report national statistics. And quite frankly, national statistics are an average. So they hide a range of variations in terms of wealth distribution and in terms of income distribution. So I don't have any difficulty with the fact that you say that the data has to become sharper. I absolutely agree with that. I have no difficulty with saying that the institutional and governance arrangements have to become sharper. At in the case of Tobago House of Assembly, as it is should all over Trinidad and Tobago. I don't have any difficulty with those statements at all. Right? The issue is, right, whose claims are more legitimate and whose claims for a higher percentage on the basis of X. Right? Generally speaking, it works on the basis of population numbers, how that should operate. Right? And I think that we have to face some reality where that is concerned. And I don't think I'm hearing that. That's the first point. The second point with regard to allocation of revenue on the basis of measurement, that is also done should be done on the basis of, well, basically what's the revenue contribution. I fully accept that there are local economic areas that require additional development expenditure. Right? That is particularly true. I'm sure that the people in Miaro, for example, will argue that the per capita distribution of if you want state resources is much better in Tobago than it is in Miaro. Right? And I'm certainly the people in Toko or Miaro or in Matlot or any other the other areas will say that too.
Let it come to us. That point.
Right?
Let
Right,
Miaro
so there's
and all the others who feel that they are. No, I am. This is a serious point he's raising there, you know.
All right. So
Every
I'm
time
saying,
talk differently. Yes. Wants to make its case for its own specialness. People like Mariano bring up Mayaro, Guayari. What does that have to do with anything? Shogona.
San Fernando.
As if we're on par. We're on the same level.
We are not.
I want to ask.
We must push back against that viewpoint.
I want to ask Mr. Brown.
why?
I want to ask Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown,
Let they argue for their independence down there.
if the government of Trinidad and Tobago decides to build a hospital in Sangre Grande, does Miaro benefit? Does Miaro benefit?
I'm sure the Miaro people will say no in the same way the Point Forte people said no as well. Right? And I go further to this. Should we be building hospitals in every town because we think that they should have? And the answer is that you just don't have the distribution of manpower to basically make it make sense. How many surgeons are you going to allocate to each individual hospital? right? And how do you develop any kind of specialty or special capacity on that basis? You can't, right? At the end of the day, we have to think in much more realistic terms. I fully understand that Tobago is standalone. There's distance by water, there's distance by air, and there's a special needs case for having certain things in Tobago, right? That can satisfy that. At the same token, when we're talking about budgetary expenditure, we're talking about central government. Central government is also responsible for a number of other pieces of expenditure, which is not included in the calculation. And quite frankly, as far as the Tobago House of Assembly is concerned, it does not exist, which is totally untrue.
What are those, Mariano?
Right. So all is spending on healthcare, all is spending on what you call it, on infrastructure development is done by the Tobago House of Assembly. Central government doesn't spend anything at all.
That we are saying that the law says that the assembly must be allocated between 4.03 and 6% to do the business, to fund the operation of the assembly. There's responsibilities of the central government in Tobago. They have to take up their responsibility. If they want to shed those responsibilities, shed them to the THA, give us the money to do them. It's as simple as that. We could do them in Tobago, you know. And that's what we're asking for. Give us the authority and power to do what we need to do in Tobago, and we wouldn't have this conversation next year.
Well,
government is doing it in Tobago.
There's a lot of room here, right, as Mr. James said, for argument and discussion. Right? And I'm sure that is an argument. And I'm sure from the other side of the fence as well, with regard to how we administer those expenditures, it misses the point with regard to efficiency and a central structure in terms of managing it. I am sure that those arguments are also missed. So I take your point and I hear you, and I'm sure that we have an opportunity to knock heads on this particular point again. But for the moment, let me put it this way, right? The central government spends a fair amount of money on other things in Tobago, which is not included in the calculation. If your calculation is simply that the Tobago House of Assembly must spend it by definition, that it must pass through the Tobago House of Assembly and it shouldn't go anywhere else, well, that is where the argument comes in.
The argument, Mariano. We are saying that what the governance arrangement is that the assembly is responsible for X, Y, and Z. The central government is X, Y, and Z.
Okay,
we are not
so I understand the argument.
Right.
If you repeat it, not going to carry us very much further. What I'm going to say to you is this: I understand the need for us to sort this matter out. I fully understand and appreciate that point. And I'm saying that there are alternate points of view. I'm sure, as Mr. James has said it very clearly, that there's need for logical and reasonable argument to be deployed on this particular matter. And I agree.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Mr.
But you know what I don't like is that the moment Tobago raises its voice on such a matter, somebody has to bring You're bringing my arrow.
And Pinal.
You know?
Pinal. All right. We're going to take a break. When you're going to come back, we're going to continue the discussion on the budget presentation for 2023-2024. Stay tuned.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Are you looking Looking for a place for your loved ones? Heavenly Care welcomes you. Located at Northside Road opposite Massey Motors, we offer a variety of services. These include doctor visitations, social activities, geriatric care, and much more. Contact us at 277-9595 or visit us at Northside Road opposite Massey Motors. At Heavenly Care, compassion is at the heart of all care.
Jimmy's Holiday Resorts has 1, 2, and 3 bedroom fully self-contained apartments located at the heart of Crown Point. Minutes walk to the popular beaches, restaurants, bars, and the airport. Enjoy our amazing amenities such as fully equipped apartments complete with Wi-Fi, AC, TV, and a pool, and a mini-mart on the compound. Call 639-8292 or 8929. Jimmy's Holiday Resorts is your family's home away from home.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tapago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tapago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tapago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tapago's at your service.
And we're back with a special edition of Tobago Updates where we discuss the budget presentation that was laid out in the Tobago Assembly today by our Chief Secretary, Mr. Fali Chavez Augustine. All right. And so as we move on swimmingly into the discussion, right, what I wanted to direct the conversation towards is that we have been seeing, or the DRC ruling has been intact for, as it was said today, 22 years, 23 years, correct me if I'm wrong. And we have always been getting the lower echelons of that, 4 point. We haven't even reached the midway point of that, as the Chief Secretary highlighted. Do we know, as Tobago, look at, as Tobago, or even as the House of Assembly, look at that agreement as a failed agreement and now start to discuss strategies on how we can now create a mechanism or a policy framework where we can get allocations that are reviewed possibly every 3 years or every 2 years, you understand? Or we look at, instead of, and I don't want to give this suggestion here, I want to give this to the panel, but do we now ask ourselves, is this DRC ruling really serving us? Do we need to go back to the table?
But isn't it built into that DRC ruling that it can be reviewed as necessary? So we don't even need to create anything.
But should it be in the Constitution that we go back to the table every few years?
You're going down a particular path. And I'm very excited that you are. Yes. Right? I'm very excited. You speak my language. Let me tell you something. You see the changes that we aspire for, and the changes that we aspire for, just not for Tobago, but nationally, which involves us removing and restarting with regard to where we are from 1976 to present. We have to be prepared collectively. The citizen here, it is in this document. It is in the speech of the Chief Secretary today. We must be prepared to coalesce and put aside our political differences and understand that the goals and objectives and dreams that we want to become realities can only come in our hands if we come together as one people with one goal. And
Dr.
make it
Mohammed,
happen.
but you have to go to the point of how we bring that into being.
And we bring that into play
Yes. How
by
do you do that?
we coalesce You see, we can't be factionalized in a small space like Tobago, and even if you look at what is happening to the nomination day in Trinidad, there are so many different political parties. But do the political parties that exist and emerge, do they have vast different political ideology? No, they don't. If you look at the UNC and the PNM right now, let's use them as the examples. They are on equal ground, and they are flipping on the same side, the different side of the same coin. Are we going to continue? We have Farley Augustine who emerged, right? We have others who will emerge, who can come together to create that change that needs to happen, so that there's no you asking me the question in 2026 whether it is possible to change the constitution. But we should be working towards that time when we all come together in, as Sir Arthur Lewis said, in that grand coalition.
That takes a level of social maturity.
And you're saying that we don't have it?
No, I'm sure of it. We don't have it.
We need to get
talk
there, though.
about it.
We need to get it.
But the point is, it's not a question of artificializing it.
No.
It has got to come concretely.
Has to happen.
Dynamically.
Yes.
Has to come out of the interaction.
Yes.
That has not happened. In the meantime, people are occupying.
Or distracted. Occupied or distracted?
No, occupying.
Occupying,
Yeah,
yes.
taking a space.
Yeah.
And doing something with it.
Yeah.
Right? No, we don't want that.
No.
We don't want that. But we have to develop the politics to push that out the window.
And we need to start from now. Time is against us.
But how are you going to do that if you don't have a conversation with the people at every step of the way?
Yes.
How is it going to happen?
This thing doesn't move forward unless we have we have to bring the people with us.
And you see, that's why we have this platform.
We also have to be prepared, regardless of the fact that we like a particular political party. We have to be prepared to criticize or critique our own party that we like when they do wrong and set the path straight, because it's checks and balance that somebody of a different political party may be bringing to the table
Ms.
for
Trotman,
consideration.
I will tell you, Ms. Trotman, having been there, done that, I will tell you quite frankly, I love no political party more than I love myself and my country.
Amen.
Okay.
And that at this stage,
but we haven't gotten to that.
We
People are
need to-
still stuck with a party
But you see,
beyond the country.
They did it in
Because
Tobago.
they start off with agendas.
Yes.
They have different agendas that they are promoting,
This
and there is a
4
jockeying amongst the people who have the different agendas.
This 4.54%, this 4.54 billion should never be a debate. It should never be a
But it is,
how
eh?
do we get there, right?
Mr. Richards,
And if
you
we
have...
don't, listen to me, and if we don't spend it in 1 year, we keep what remains.
You said it
Tell
back,
everybody
we said it back.
this. We keep what remains, and we add it to the next year's allocation.
The new autonomy bill has something that I actually enjoyed, I will find very interesting, which is the Tobago Investment Fund, the TIF.
TIF.
And I say, when you get what you don't spend, you put it in there.
This is how they have the HSF.
Well, you could call it
Correct.
whatever you want. Yeah?
It's our money.
But it's our money. And right now, the chief secretary talked about the 152 million
Yeah.
from 2017
They owe you all.
to date.
and then another 53 from the midterm review.
Yes.
So I didn't read that one.
It's 205
something.
million.
Right.
But just on the point in terms of getting the people involved and getting the people's mandate involved, there's a policy position there that speaks to establishing an institutional framework to institutionalize public participation in the whole policy matrix of the administration going forward. So that's a deliberate policy statement, and that is going to build off from the ongoing.
There are others, you know.
The
one that you're not remembering to raise, Anselm, is the requirement that the Constitution, or the Act, if you prefer, should state those things that Tobago is completely in charge of.
Right. Yes. Definitely.
No resolution by Trinidad. And the same thing for Trinidad.
Yes.
The lines of authority for
Must be
Trinidad
clear.
should be very clear and must
Demarcated, yes.
be unmistakable,
Yes.
unambiguous.
Yes.
Which means we need to take a look at what is currently before Parliament, almost throw that out.
And no, but you know, the Deputy Chief Secretary is supposed to push that part of the development program for the House of Assembly. Is that not so, Mr.
Yes.
Richards?
But the office is busy.
That was assigned.
Yes.
It's no longer the case?
It was assigned to the former Deputy
Yes,
Chief Secretary
yes.
portfolio.
Yes.
So it is
But
still
I
resident
didn't know
in the
that you
office.
wanted to invoke him at this point.
No, please. It is the function, the responsibility is still resident at the office of the Deputy
Right.
Chief Secretary.
So we have to, she has to consult with the people and she has to take the position, it could vary over time, to the government in Port of Spain. And we must all be part of it. It must not be done secretly. It must be said loud and clear. And there must be responses to that. Now, all we have had so far is silence. You know, if there's any weakness, answer them to what this, to the kind of governance we have had from the Farley administration, is that there's been silence.
Yes.
Silence on issues such as that.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
those
would
are the
agree.
things that will carry you up in the public's counting.
Well, I guess that silence has been broken today.
And it should
And there's a clear policy position that was articulated
Yes.
with the commitment to be relentless and in concert with the people of Tobago to treat with these minimum enrichment as he defined them to be.
It is implementation.
Right. So
It is carrying through.
right, and
It
then-
is involving the people.
well, he said that he's going to lead the integration of all the new ideas that you and Ms. Stratman are proposing again, and put them into a Tobago position paper
Right.
that will inform the critical minimum changes and amendments that to be proposed to the Constitution.
And I hear what you're saying, that
Right.
Tobago position,
Right.
not a TPP or
A Tobago.
independent
There is no
position,
politics
but
in
a Tobago.
When we-
and I
when we
need
use-
us to say that
when
for
we
Tobagonians.
when we use the word Tobago, we are not ascribing any politics to that. We are ascribing the people of the island to that. So I want you to make the distinction.
You know, there are some things you need to say.
Right.
You may understand it,
So-
but we want to make sure the man on the ground also understands.
Yeah. So it is clear and
And therefore, how you structure the creation of the position paper is important. Who are the people you use? Are they professionals
Of
that
course.
can leave the politics aside and focus on science, on gathering people's ideas, right? Without fear and without favor. Gathering it, analyzing it, coming to
Document it.
certain conclusions, putting it before the people, and say, carry this down to Port of Spain and tell them this is what we want.
Right.
No, that
I
is
want
not.
to carry the conversation into another realm here. If I was to do a counter on every time I heard the word sustainable this morning, if I was to get $1 paid,
you'd be a rich man.
I would have, I'd probably got a couple $100. I don't know, right? But the word sustainable, the word resilient, right, was used a lot this morning. And I want to bring up a point that the Chief Secretary highlighted on, is that the THA framework as it is now set up is not very sustainable in terms of employment. The figures, as we know, we have a very high reliance on the THA for employment here in Tobago. And in Trinidad, it's quite the opposite. It could be probably the polar opposite in terms of percentage numbers, right? In terms of, he said that 70% of the employable pool in Trinidad is in the private sector. And that is why it is so resilient and probably sustainable. I don't know if he said sustainable. He did say resilient, right? And I wanted to highlight some of the ideas. What do we then do in order to shift that needle down on the THA reliance for employment from public to private?
Well, first of all, you have to create the inducement to to spur private sector investment in the economy, in new growth areas in the economy. That means that you will have to put in the infrastructure, like crowding in private sector investment. That will require the THA to do some initial investment to create the environment. It will also require the THA to even improve its own operational efficiency and accountability, to give credibility to Tobago as a space for investment. It also means that the central government will have to give the THA the constitutional authority to control private sector development in Tobago by strengthening its governance framework.
Okay.
So all these things are intertwined. You know?
That's economics, eh?
Well, it's more than economics. We're living in a world of intersectionality.
Yes.
If you don't understand that.
Could you repeat that word?
Intersectionality. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
So when we talk about 1% unemployment and we're talking about how we go to sequence the development and all those things, we have to understand that one thing feeds and impact the other. But then as a government, you have to set up
Let
a
me
work
just
program.
add this. The market in Tobago, I mean, I know we talked about that, and I know we said that there are smaller places that do better than we do.
Yeah.
I understand that. But Tobago's economy is too small. There simply are not right now enough people in the economy.
Well,
yes.
I want to
orientation should not be to
counter
produce
that.
for Tobago,
Because
but to produce
you see now,
exportable.
we're now living in a digital space.
Yes.
That the Tobago market is no longer the 616 square miles. You can be a unique producer of a unique product in Tobago and you sell it to the man down in the battlefield in Ukraine. Because you have FedEx, your product can go. So we have to use the creative opportunity that presents themselves in this new world.
You're talking marketability.
No, we are talking about market.
We're not talking about size of the economy. We're talking about how people can come up with a product and sell it to whomever.
Right, so that's your market. Your market.
So you're talking about Apple, for example, than the iPhone,
of course,
which has been produced and is making money because it's sold everywhere. Right?
So the same kind of
But you can't generalize from that to say Tobago's economy has the right size or has it a sufficient size. What do we produce to do what Apple has done?
What I'm saying is that when we are producing for a market,
yes,
we can't look at the 50,000 people.
You can't look at a geographic
space anymore.
Of the confines of Tobago.
We are saying that as a business, when you are producing, you're not confining your production to satisfy this market.
And tell me about that.
So okay, I like what you just said. You said when you're operating like a business.
Yes.
And therefore it means that one of the approaches has to be that you develop a business model that you can work with, that can do exactly what Anthem is saying with regard to pushing
But
the market
of
out there.
scale.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you take the Sheen flour and sell it to the world?
Well,
because you have technology or you have digitization.
Not only
no, but nobody has worked that out. If you are saying that is the case, let's work it out and let us see whether it can be done. Well, it is easy to do it with an iPhone. It is not easy for Tobago to do it.
So you would look at the areas where we would have
there has to be market
advantage to do that.
Target market segmentation.
Industries
when we have looked at those and we can determine now that we have a sufficiency of production that would expand the market beyond Tobago.
Well, yeah, you can upscale the market incrementally. You can start Tobago, Trinidad, regional, international. So there are different.
Part of it is bringing people back.
Let me give you an example.
If you're going to bring money, when we talk about the diaspora, we are thinking that they have monies that can be used in Tobago. Are we not thinking that way?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm saying these people, the diaspora, can expand the market in feasible ways. I'm talking about, but we have to talk about it.
And it's not just money to develop the things to stay in Tobago. That's why I want to get
because at the end of the day,
the money comes in to finance development that goes some in Tobago, it goes back out to markets.
But we've got to be very specific about the ways in which that happens.
Yes. So that there's that's why the discussion needs to be. It's such a critical.
Do
part
people still
of
go to the
whole
United
thing.
States, Sister K?
Of course, they still do.
What attracts them there?
There are other things apart from the shopping, apart from there are other things. Just the whole thing of being in the
novelty.
Yeah.
The point I'm making.
Even though we have Amazon and we don't need to go there.
Right.
I know
That
that's where
can
it's coming.
happen. That is only one part of it. But if we swell, or the non-white peoples of the world swell the economy of the United States, we know that. They occupy particular kinds of station. We know the stations that they occupy. We must know. And the question is, can Tobago have that kind of attractiveness?
Yes.
To the extent that the economy is expanded.
Yes. Yes.
Well, nobody has made that argument.
Well, remember the South. Remember, Trinidad and Tobago is part of the South Agreement, and because the division of finance includes the division of finance, trade, and the industry
And the economy.
and the economy. Sorry, but the very important word trade. Right. It gives you the mandate to go out there and find your market. Look, for example, this guy, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, was very ambitious when he attempted to create the airline Antigua Airways, and he sought to fly direct from Antigua to Ghana, and it was an experiment that was not very well thought out, but he still carried through and suffered a loss. Those who didn't know that Antigua existed in Africa knew then, right? So with regard to your dasheen flower, there are places and I'm just using the African continent, that is in need of food.
Scale.
And therefore, why
Scale,
is
part of it? Let me just intervene just a little bit. Hold your thought, We're all getting old, so we forget what we were saying. Do you think Tobago has enough land to produce enough dasheen to send abroad, wherever?
If you have to
Scale.
start somewhere.
No, but I mean, let us be practical.
Even if we
about
don't
it.
go to Africa, but we go to the region, or we go to we are next door to South America, we go into a city. We don't have to go into a country.
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think Trinidad has enough wheat to make flour to send elsewhere in the Caribbean?
Same question.
No. Okay.
Do you know, for example, that Suriname and Guyana are the places that we have to look at, or people have been looking at, in terms of food sufficiency?
Right.
Because they have the land space.
But do you also know that in 2018, when Mia Motley was chair of CSME, she said, and I could find that document for you all, and I could quote her. She said, the Caribbean region can depend on only 3 countries in CARICOM to provide food security for the region.
I have called 2.
Which is Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Suriname.
Yeah. She called Trinidad and Tobago in that?
Yes, because we
I
are
am
predominantly out of the hurricane belt.
I'm surprised.
And therefore, we should be maximizing on it. And why is it Tobago cannot? We don't have to have enough land, We have technology. Listen, you're not building on the ground no more. You're going up.
Yeah.
And you're growing as you go up.
But you all speak as romanticists.
But I think the fundamental point Dr. James probably was about to was articulating is the fact that how do you grow the domestic market in a physical quantum way.
Yes.
Right? So one of the things, because of the nature of the Tobago economy and its service-driven, government-powered, tourism-led, call it what you mean, but those are some features you can use to ascribe to it. What you will probably need to do is to bring in traffic, human traffic, and that's what tourism does, to uptake.
Yes.
So you need to bring traffic to the island to consume and to buy up the services and generate.
You also need to increase the size of the local population.
Well, that's one option.
How are you doing that?
That's one option.
You can't force people to have children.
That's one option.
Because things have happened in the meantime.
Yeah,
My children have gone on.
Yes.
They are not going to easily come back to Tobago
Right.
because they now have settled lifestyles.
Right.
elsewhere
So
that are more lucrative. more inviting, and that caused them to dismiss the beautiful little island from which that generated them in the first place.
So we may need to have a conversation on a population policy for Tobago.
Yes, but again,
policy.
it all goes back to constitutional reform, because we don't have powers over immigration laws.
No, hold on.
Well,
You do have powers. You do have powers to, as Adam just said, to create traffic.
Yes, but
and the longer you take to drive that traffic, it's doing yourself a
disfavor.
Okay. Right?
I get
so
you.
that there are people who will come to Tobago, love it and stay, and they will probably create
Don't forget Mariano.
We had to let Mariano wait.
Bring up Mariano.
We have advised him, Brother Chair, that he can intervene whenever he wants.
Bring up Mariano. Let me see Mariano.
Mariano is still there?
I don't understand.
Is Mr. Brown in?
But you didn't hear. All right, and the point I made at the beginning, right? Transformation is not a 1 year or 5 year exercise. Transformation is a 25-year exercise. And the point I was making, in terms of what you have to transition away, from the THA being the major player in the Tobago economy. And that's the first point. The second point is that you also have to generate and focus on the type of businesses you want to see develop, given everything else that's taking place. So I understand the conversation, I understand the context, right? And it's not a simple one. So where and Tobago has always been focused on large measure on entertainment, resource management, human resource management, and in the same token, tourism services, right? And the reality is they are underdeveloped areas. Right? It is not merely about hotel beds. It is about everything else that goes with it from the point of view of entertainment that requires to be developed. So what is the transformation requirement and what's the dollar spend that you need to do for a creation of a job to basically move forward? I think that's where we have to start to talk about. We're really talking about the size of the budget without really having clear expenditure plans about what we want to do, which is my point from the beginning. So I'm interested in listening to the issues about developing the economy and what should take place. And quite frankly, those are the key steps that we need to talk about. So I'm very happy for the conversation, but I also have to say that I have to leave you at this stage. I have some other things I have to do tomorrow morning and I have to prepare. So thank you very much for the offer. Thank you.
5 more minutes.
You're wrapping up.
But I dare say, Anselm, this is where we have to go beyond what this budget statement is all about. There really needs to be a more medium-term, long-term outlook and a path to get to there where these individual annual budgets are just stepping stones towards that. Otherwise, what we are having are budget plans and budgets in a vacuum or in a space by itself. Yes.
So the thing
and
is,
a one-off.
The thing is, to do the kind of technical calculation and the plan that Mariano and you and that we know needs to be done, it takes over a year to get a plan like that done, right? So you can't wait for the plan to finish. And as the Chief Secretary said,
No,
you have to do.
You can't wait.
You have to start implementing features of the plan because these are works that the plan is saying that needs to be done.
Yes. So while that is being done,
so the plan
things should be still happening and engagement should still be happening.
So that's because so it doesn't mean that you don't come with a budget with your work
No, it
program
doesn't mean that.
while you're doing the development plan. So you have to build the bridge and cross it at the same time.
And you did
That's
say
the
you
only
did
way.
say the plan is in development, right?
But it's like building a house. You start with the foundation and you put up a little room and you live there and then you expand the downstairs and then
But you know what it demands too? It demands coming from the administration. That thought that goes to the man on the ground that this budget is ongoing. It is not a good budget, therefore I comment it's a good budget, it's a bad budget, I disappoint. No, we have to change that conversation to a different kind of conversation. So the media would not ask me to comment what I think about the budget or is it a 5, it's a 10. We need to move away from that because of where we need to get to. And I dare say it is the administration's responsibility to lead us in that direction.
I think I will also go a step further to say that the administration has at its disposal persons who have the skill set, who has the passion, who has the drive, who has the interest of the success of the administration at heart, and therefore the ball is in the administration's court to utilize the human resources that it has at its disposal. I am sure if you pick up the phone and you call Ms. Trotman and say, we want you to be a part of this development plan, she's not going to say, well, I am part of the IDA. No. Because, that only happens with one political party as far as I'm aware. And I make no apologies for saying that either. But, the fact is that this is a watershed moment. And it's an opportunity for us to take it and take this plan and really run with it. And don't stop. Even if we have to go to, as Max was saying today, go to Woodsford Square and placate the government.
I feel that's what we need to do next one. We need to go.
That he has been a trade union.
Yeah. 100 passengers and Slim. Yes. And let me go in and ban our promenade and with placards.
That's a last resort.
Yeah.
As intelligent people, we must use argument, discussion, suasion, and use the science, right? Show them that we have the argument. We're not just being arbitrary. Yes? And if that fails now, we go to the demonstration. We will never get to violence, by the way.
No.
We must eschew violence from the beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. I just want to touch on this quick, because I have the technical advisor here. The FBI, the foreign direct investment for the diaspora. This has been something that the chief said talk about since before he came in. Is there, well, from where I sit, I'm not sure where that is right now, but I just want to touch on it. If you could touch on it right now.
Okay, you recall that last year, summer, we launched the Diaspora Initiative in New York. What has happened since is that we have built up the whole concept paper for the diaspora. Right, so we have designed the concept as to how we're going to do the diaspora engagement online platform. It will be a globe, when you set up the online platform, wherever in the world you have the Tobago diaspora residing, and you go on that platform, the globe will light up, so you will see.
Okay.
So that's the sophistication of the
visual design. Very visual.
Right, and it will have it's something like a LinkedIn platform, but specifically designed to mobilize and keep our diaspora engaged.
Okay.
And to receive data in terms of their qualification, resources,
right.
areas of interest of investment, and so forth. And I can share here that I shared the concept note with the Minister of Digital Transformation.
Okay.
He was very excited about the prospect of that,
right.
and decided to support this initiative.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
Thank you. I want to give thanks for our panelists coming up for tonight, right? Even our panelists joining us online. It was a wonderful conversation, but we have come to the end of tonight's program. But before we go, I just want to inform you that our Honorable Chief Secretary, Mr. Afali Chavez Augustine, will be on Tobago Updates Television tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. with our esteemed host, Ms. Candice Jackson. All right? And he will be discussing, obviously, the presentation that was laid out yesterday. All right? So join us tomorrow for that. All right? That is supposed to be very exciting. But again, I want to thank you, Tobago, for tuning in tonight on For the Hour with me and the panel. It was wonderful to have you in the studio with us tonight. But until next week, have a productive week, and I bid you adieu. Have a good night.